Hello and welcome to Beyond Games, the YouTube channel all about what's next for gaming. I'm Jon Jordan, and joining me today is Klaas Kersting. Great to have you, Klaas. How's it going?
Pleasure to be here. Thank you for taking the time, Jon.
No, so we've known each other for a few years now, and you've been in the game space, I think, even longer than me, which is good. And I thought today we'd have a chat about a little bit kind of about your history, a bit more about kind of what you're doing now with your company, Phoenix Games, and you've just announced some interesting fundraising stuff. But more generally, I kind of thought, as you've been around, you've seen a few cycles of the games industry. It'd be good to get your view on kind of where we are with games and potentially talk a bit about kind of what you think might be coming next. But maybe a good place to start, a kind of a potted introduction to you, how you got into games, and your kind of games history so far.
Of course. So I got into games through my dad, actually. He was running the IT center of a university, and as a result, we had ARPANET at home when there was no internet, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
The predecessor of the internet. We played like the first multi-user dungeons together. I was sitting on his lap. He was live translating because I obviously couldn't speak or read English. And that led to a geeky childhood with too many video games, pen and paper, all the stuff that basically was uncool before Stranger Things and then became super cool. So apparently I had a super cool geek childhood. Fucked up a few university studies, playing too much, and
Happens.
Founded my first company, GameForge, which was a wild ride and grew like crazy from 2 founders to 650 people and like 150 million in revenue per year. When I left the company because it didn't feel entrepreneurial enough for me. I didn't feel the impact of my work anymore. It was just too big.
And that was the kind of browser gaming kind of boom, wasn't it? That was particularly strong in Germany. The German companies really drove that.
It was strong, so we started out with browser, and that was basically continental Europe mainly, and then put licensed MMOs on top of that we got from Japan and Korea mainly. Those guys were just ahead of free-to-play monetization back then, and we piggybacked on their knowledge and distributed them on the reach that we had through the browser games in Europe. Fun times. After GameForge, I didn't know what to do, so I started what every halfway successful entrepreneur is doing when he doesn't know what to do. I did some angel investing, do it until today. Yeah. Most outstanding one probably was my angel investment in Supercell, which was an even crazier ride. I do this until today, so I have always like 20-ish or so investments, mostly in the gaming entertainment space, some e-commerce stuff. The stuff that I understand a little bit about. What I love about is the interaction with the entrepreneurs. So in my world, entrepreneurs are superheroes, and they have this superpower of bending reality to their will and making something happen where everybody told them, this won't work. Don't do this.
Yes,
this won't work. And then there is this moment when you realize finally, oh damn, it is actually working. being part of that journey to that moment and being there when that happens, it's sheer magic.
It's kind of like in a way, kind of having a vision and then everyone tells you it's wrong, and then you actually kind of make them, not in a nice way, but they have to admit that the vision was right, and they just didn't quite understand it. And I guess that's the excitement of it is sort of changing reality, isn't it? It's sort of creating something, even though it's a digital thing.
And it feels like magic. It's insane. And so that part I enjoy, and being part of that journey and being able to, in the best case, contribute to that and learn from that is something that I really enjoy. However, that didn't fulfill me completely. So I founded my next company, which was Flare Games.
Yep.
Originally supposed to be a location-based game studio.
I remember this. This is when we first met, and you were
exactly.
showing me your prototype of a location-based game, and I was just like, "What is this guy on? This is."
Yeah, exactly.
This is crazy.
For everybody who's listening and who didn't see it, imagine a game like Pokemon Go without the franchise, too early, and executed in a really bad way. That was it. Which surprisingly led to first the pivot to free-to-play developer and then a free-to-play publisher. And here's where the overlap with Phoenix starts somehow. Because the basic observation back then was that obviously the market gets more competitive. And it gets more multidisciplined as well. So in the early days, being able to build a great game was enough to be successful.
Yeah.
And during that time, the period started where it wasn't anymore. And that was due to the fact that there were so many things other than developing great games that a developer had to be good at to really make something out of what they create.
Yeah.
And that stacked the market back then already, and it's got even worse since then against the small to mid-sized guys, which quite frankly sucks. It makes innovation harder, it makes creativity harder, it makes replication more interesting than coming up with new things. And that is something that I, as a gamer by heart, really hate. And loving to be part of an entrepreneur's journey, I hate that as well, because that is not bending reality to your will. This is like following recipe B. And it's not enjoyable, it's not fun. So the thought back then was, so there are all these amazing developers that can still develop great games, and they need things to be as successful as they deserve to be. We build all these things, work together with them, there is something to share, everybody is happier and is more successful. That worked quite well for a while. And it was very, very enjoyable. What we discovered over time is that there are a few fundamental flaws with the developer-publisher model, basically. And that is mainly around the alignment between the developer and the publisher. You can create like super smart and great fair contracts, trying to align things to the maximum. But in the end, it's two different companies wanting two different things strategically. And if you invest in a game and it's really successful, it has like a long, long life cycle ahead of it. And naturally, the path will diverge. That is not good for the game. That is not great for the investment that usually the publisher made back then. And in the end, it harms the player, it harms the product, it harms the fun, and it harms the commercial success. That is a problem. So we went back to the drawing board and we're thinking about, okay, how can we fix this? Because this is something that endangers the fundament, right? And we came back with Phoenix Games, basically, which builds on the same observation. Market is stacked against the small to mid-sized guys. They are missing things, yada, yada, yada. But we tackle it more in an embracing, wholehearted way. So what we do now is looking for developers who have found some success, evergreen title, something that found their market. They usually are profitable. They usually are slightly growing or stable, or slightly diminishing, but plus or minus, they are doing well, but not great. And that is where we come into play and basically acquire those companies and bring our suite of what we call uplift products to the place. So we believe in technology a lot. In Flare Games, we try to solve a lot of things with manpower and try to be like a one-stop shop for every developer. So basically offering everything they could ever need. With Phoenix, we are really, really focused on automated, scalable products that, based on machine learning and AI, touch the main levers of the free-to-play business model. Like, for example, an algorithm that automatically manages all campaigns and bids for all our games, and optimizes based on some predictive lifetime value calculation on user acquisition profit instead of scale. An automated waterfall that continuously balances for every user the ad waterfall in any game. We are currently testing a product that basically does segmenting, pricing, and automated promo journeys based on what the user gives us as properties, stuff like that. And obviously, this is applicable to any game that we find without creating that much work. So it's light touch, it's a small integration. And what we've seen so far is that we can really change the game for those developers that we buy. We acquire them, we plug our stuff in, and they get so much more out of what they made, both in terms of financial performance, which is obviously important to then enable more creativity. Because with a bigger buffer, with a bigger bottom line, you can take bigger risk. You can go after more creative things. And in the end, at least at the start, that was why we all joined this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So going back to this enabling function is something that feels really good. And it seems to be a solid business model as well. So we have a bunch of studios under our umbrella now, five to be exact, all in Europe so far. And with all of them, the recipe worked. We keep iterating and stacking up more of these uplift products. And so we have more and more firepower to really change the game for the studios that join us.
Yeah, that makes sense. I've always thought obviously the kind of the publisher developer model has over the decades kind of changed, but fundamentally I've always felt that the publisher is always making multiple bets and doesn't really care which one pays off as long as one does. And obviously that means that's great for the developer whose product pays off for the publisher because they're the one that they want, and all the other ones are sort of, you know, the publisher may help them out in many different ways and allow them to do things they couldn't otherwise do, but fundamentally the long-term, you know, vision is for the one that's the big $1 billion hit, and all the other ones are kind of let go. And so the only way you can, as you say, kind of stop that is for the publisher to actually own all the developers. But then you kind of end up with the problem of scale. The you know, developers, publishers have done that, and then end up with, you know, 25 different studios around the world. The CEO has no idea what half of them are doing, and half of them aren't actually doing anything. So I guess there's kind of swings and roundabouts going on. I'm going to just actually screen share so we can have a look at the Phoenix Games website, at least, and we can see some of your companies. So let me do this. So okay. So you got the edgy young man on the cover there. That's always good to see. So
that is the problem when you can't get your team together due to Corona for a professional photo shoot. You have to cast some San Francisco hipster.
Okay, so it is interesting, as you say. I mean, the teams you've acquired. Let's find them here. So there's the 5 teams you've acquired, and you know, with all due respect to those teams, they are not they're not kind of household names particularly. I guess the best known is probably 16 Tons, but well known in Germany. So is that, I mean, to be slightly pointed, is that because, you know, you're basically, there's a lot of M&A going on. Games companies are highly valued at the moment, so to some degree you can't afford some of them, but equally, as you were saying, you know, the ones that are very, very successful already kind of don't need your help, so you almost like you're drawn to kind of the smaller ones who you feel you can scale in a way.
So yes and no. Okay. We are drawn towards the one where we can have impact, is the first criteria, and then obviously we are drawn to ones that match us in ambition, chemistry, and personality as well. We don't want to acquire a studio and take over. We see our role in enabling the entrepreneurs, enabling the founders to create more, to achieve more, and that we provide stuff, they have to enable it, and that is something that doesn't fit the personality and plan of every studio founder, studio owner, and that is totally fine. Obviously, we are not in the game for a very, very long period yet. So what we wanted to build is proof points as well. We built the suite of uplift products, and we apply them to more and more companies. Obviously, looking at the typical things, M&A strategies go probably being bigger and bigger per transaction. So the scale going up, but just from a risk profile, obviously with a working theory and a bunch of products that we think or thought that work, we didn't want to do like a, I don't know, $50-100 million deal, but focus on something smaller where we are pretty certain that it works, but where we can prove that it works as well. And with the 5 studios that we acquired, we have delivered those proof. They are in different sizes, obviously, but we stacked more and more on top of each other. Yeah, we are looking forward to a really, really exciting 21, 22, and the years to come, because we think we are onto something there.
Good. So there is actually something that we can talk about if I can find your news section. So you have just announced some more funding, and you know you've sort of gone out and found a whole bunch of people you know, with a broadly similar experience to you. So there's a lot of money floating around at the moment, generally in the world, for kind of corporate use. So companies, not just games companies have never raised as much money as they did last year, and we have lots of kind of interesting stuff going on in Silicon Valley, and money being raised, and the kind of SPACs being launched, and ICOs and all this sort of IPOs. So I guess it's not, for someone like you, it's not that difficult to raise money, but I guess, you know, what's interesting is you've raised money from mobile game founders who have founded some very well-known companies. So is that just because sort of they're your mates and you hang around with them, or is there something a bit more strategic? And why are they interested in kind of doing this? Because they're running their own companies, they've got other things to do.
I mean, obviously the industry is not that big, so people know each other, right?
Yeah.
What shows a little bit in what we did there with the funding, and it's not that much about the funding. As you said, there is a lot of money floating around. Money is pretty boring. And basically, everybody can raise money in the current market system when they do something with games and can show some traction. Yeah. Probably not for, hey, I have a great idea and want to develop a new game, but for everything that is a little bit further down the line, there is some money in the market. And you see it every day, like funding rounds that are being announced. This one, yes, obviously we raised money from those very amazing people, but it is more about creating the network and getting their support, advice, experience on our side. They literally did create like billions of dollars of equity value and had like billions of downloads. I worked together with several of them. I mean, Heiko was my biggest competitor back in Gameforge times, and now he is invested in my company and I'm invested in his. Fingersoft with Hill Climb Racing, the second biggest mobile game of all times. Oh my God. I worked with Wooga and sat on their board. Colibri Games is from Karlsruhe, and I remember the guys just being fresh out of university and sitting together with me and some of my colleagues, just sparring about things. Amazing journey afterwards. It's just super smart, amazing, and successful people. And having those on my side obviously is something that is desirable. On top of that, what I'm particularly proud of, obviously these people know a tiny bit about the market and how things go and where the challenges might be and where there might be success, and all of them deciding, hey, they are probably onto something there at Phoenix and this actually might work and it's worth my time and private money. Obviously is something that makes me proud and humble, because it is an amazing bunch of people, and yeah, I'm super happy about that.
Good. So let's talk a little bit more generally to kind of finish off the interview. So the mobile games industry has been around really, or the free to play is getting on for sort of 10 years now. It's still actually quite a short period of time. It's risen from literally nothing to be, you know, whatever it is, $70 billion of revenue now, the biggest single part of the games industry. I think I guess, you know, with last year and probably the next few years, games will still kind of have this kind of uplift because just people are playing more games, and there seems to be a kind of a shift in behavior around everything digital and online. But as you kind of point out a little bit, when it comes to the creative side of things, that there is obviously now an amazing competition. I mean, it's just the amount of developers out there, the tools that are available. Pretty much anyone can make a mobile game, stick it on an app store. So I've often said that kind of mobile games is sort of a mature industry, which is not to kind of put it down, but and not even to say it's not growing fast, but I think a lot of the early excitement, when Supercell was launching, Clash of Clans, that's certainly gone. And particularly with Beyond Games, we're kind of, what I'm trying to do with that is think about kind of what's coming next, and it may not be like another set of hardware. I guess we've had VR as kind of doing its thing. And there's other kind of form factors that may be coming. We have these other technologies. You've mentioned machine learning and AI, which are kind of coming in. And personally, I'm very interested in sort of stuff like blockchain. And so I just kind of wonder, for you, why is mobile still the thing that you're focusing on? Because as far as I know, Phoenix Games just has mobile at the moment. So why are you interested still in that? Why do you think there's legs still in mobile games? And do you think there is a shift coming that may not be that we move to new platforms, but it may be something like AI comes in and really sort of changes things, or kind of AR or something, or do you think about this sort of things, or are they so far off that you just like, I've got a day job, I'm running Phoenix Games, that's that's enough for me?
Obviously, we are thinking a little bit ahead every now and then. So we stick with, or we focus on mobile so far because it's the thing where we had remnants in experience from the Flare Games times, obviously, and were able to build up something the easiest. So it was pretty easy to build an organization and a tool set that was tailored to the Phoenix mission going forward, and then building on top of that. When you look through our studios, they all are like mobile first, 16 tons probably being the exception, with a substantial portion of their business still coming from PC and having like a PC legacy. I mean, this studio is like 25 years old, right? They've been through all the platforms, like literally all of them. Going forward, I obviously don't know what the future brings. History shows that there will always be a new platform. I have no idea what it will be. Will it be VR or AR or something like my glasses being the AR thing? I have no clue whatsoever, but there will be something. That is the only thing. I think there are, for VR and AR in particular, they are the next big thing for the last 15 years. It feels like that, at least. And so far it didn't happen for a multitude of problems and reasons that just didn't get solved yet from a technology perspective, mainly. There is some amazing content out there already, but it's technology, it's the burden of getting in there and the hurdle and comfort of use. And one particular thing for me privately that really annoys me about the VR and AR part, we worked for decades to make gaming more social, to make it more communal. And then you go in your own little bucket and put those things on and don't see the world anymore. Seriously, that's the best we have. So I really struggle with that concept because it contradicts everything that gaming is moving towards in a macro trend. But I do think there will be something. I think there will be a lot of technology that will be slowly put into the mass markets. But so far, mobile is still the big thing in terms of users, in terms of revenue, in terms of growth even. I mean, there are so many markets where not everybody owns a smartphone yet. And there are so many markets where the average quality of a smartphone is still like substantially below Europe, US, and the tier 1 territories in Asia. I mean, there is a whole bunch of games that exist there that are like closing in on billion-dollar franchises that we have never heard of, like literally never heard of. And that is insane. So a lot of things still to do. However, we are not completely focused on mobile. It was just like a natural development. For me, it's more, we need to be able to create value. If just buying something and having it, I mean, it's like going to the Lego store and putting it in your shelf, right? What's the point? And something like buying a company and just having it because it's valued more when there is a Phoenix on top of it and I have a portfolio of things, it's not what I want to do either. It needs to make sense. There needs to be a reason why the company is better off with me than on its own, for the founders as well, for everybody involved. And that means we have to make a difference. That's easiest with a free-to-play business model, whatever the platform is.
No, exactly. No, you're right. It's I guess it's easy if you're raising VC money for a company that no one expects to do anything for 2 years. That's a different sort of approach to what you're doing, which is you're raising money now and you want companies with product in the industry making revenue, and you're going to improve that. So and I guess the nice thing about your approach is you're fairly flexible. If when the next thing kind of does blow up, then you can you have no problem sort of acquiring that. You kind of you just go, well, these companies look interesting, we can acquire those, and it's a bit more of a fluid play. Excellent, that was lovely. Thank you very much, Klaas, for your time. Great to talk to you as ever.
Yeah, let's have a beer at the next real conference.
Well, when will that be? We will see. Hopefully not too long. And in the meantime, we are stuck with Zoom, so be thankful for small mercies. And thanks for watching the video. This is Beyond Games, the YouTube channel of Beyond Games. We have an online conference as well, and other things coming. So stay tuned for that. And please subscribe to the channel if you're interested in what's happening to computer games next. But thanks for watching, and see you again soon.